minutes, but allow me to call the meeting back to order. Given the tasks ahead of us, we will be able to accomplish in good time. I am not worried. Thank you so much for that team before tea. And for those who have joined us, please feel welcome. Allow me now to invite the next person who is speaking to us. Moffat Cargo is the Executive Director for Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association. He is going to make a presentation looking at the psychosocial impact of enforced disappearance on victims. But now I know that the victim narrative has changed to the survivors narrative. So I think really we want to look at them as survivors because the connotation around victim actually victimizes the survivors. But that's a story for another day. So Moffat, welcome. You have about 15 minutes to make a presentation. Then we can be able to follow up with because this is key, we can raise one or two questions after the presentation. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. It's actually some few seconds to afternoon. You are doing well? Asante. It's a pleasure being here once again. My name is Moffat, the CEO of the Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association. I'm so delighted to be here this afternoon. And before I say what I need to say, allow me to express my deepest sympathy to all those of you, the panelists who are here, for having gone through such an ordeal experience. I can only imagine what this means for a person. But it is interesting that I'm also hearing some things for the first time, and especially what used to happen in the 80s, what these people went through. No wonder I have a cousin of mine who was your colleague. And I think what he went through is the reason why I see him behave the way he does. Came so isolated, doesn't want to talk to people. Now I have been able to gain some new understanding. It is indeed not easy to go through some of these things. Now, I have been called to ask to speak about a very interesting aspect of psychological, mental, emotional, as well as sociological impact of enforced disappearance on survivors. I had written here victims, but I stand corrected. Survivors. Now, like I have said, I know that I haven't been in such a situation myself. Maybe in my entire life, the worst that has ever happened to me is being accosted by thugs. And if how I felt after that, you guys having to go through, not an hour, not 2 hours, days, and others months, I can only imagine what this means for you. Now, I stand before you to therefore address this issue that has shaken the very fabric of our society, enforced disappearance. This is not just a violation of human rights. It is assault on the dignity, humanity of individuals and their families. The recent cases in Kenya where state agencies abducted young protesters during demonstrations against the infamous finance bill have brought this issue into sharp focus. The cry of families and colleagues who have lost loved ones to this brutal practice echoes across our nation. As we discuss the psychological, mental, emotional, and sociological impact of enforced disappearance, let us remember that behind every statistic is a human life and a family and a community that is left in despair. And I think I have loved what one of you has said, that it is important for us to put images to these statistics. And I think that is the best way to keep memories alive. The other day I was in Kigali. We were having an event that we were calling Trauma Healing Conference. And I think when I went around in the Genocide Center, and you see those names and their photos, it brings those memories alive. And I think this is the best way to keep us reminded that this is something that we need to stand and speak against. Now, in Kenya, the recent wave of enforced disappearances during the Gen Z protests against the finance bill has highlighted the dark reality that many families are now living. Young people who took to the streets to voice their concerns were abducted, and many of them remain unaccounted for. And the reason why I'm bringing the aspect of the family is because I am, an advocate or an ambassador of families. And this is my background. And I am so passionate about families. And when I was told to come and say something about this whole thing, I couldn't think about it without bringing the aspect of families in this whole thing. Some have been found dead, their bodies showing signs of torture, while others have been released in a state of deep psychological and emotional distress after days of disappearance. The state's refusal to acknowledge or account for these disappearances only deepens the anguish of the victims' families. Now, if we can have a look at the psychological and mental impact of enforced disappearance. And I want to say that psychological and mental toll of enforced disappearance is profound and very devastating. For those who are abducted, the experience often involves torture, inhumane treatment, and prolonged isolation. Survivors of enforced disappearance frequently suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety. I've heard somebody talk about anxiety here. Sometimes depression and other mental health issues, because the trauma of their ordeal haunts them and often struggle to reintegrate into the society. And I heard what our brother said, that you have disappeared for years or for months. And then at the time when the family and your loved ones are having closure, which is not easy, we shall talk about the kind of loss that such people go through. Then you reappear and they begin to run away thinking that you're a ghost. Are you with me? And sometimes reintegrating yourself into that society can become a tall order because you actually don't know where to start. And therefore, very few people may understand what this really means for the people who have survived such kind of ordeals. Now, for the families left behind, the psychological impact is equally severe. The uncertainty surrounding the fate of a loved one creates what is known ambiguous loss. You know, ambiguous loss, this is a type of grief that is particularly very difficult to process because you may be disconnected emotionally from that person, or he may be present physically, but emotionally disconnected. Maybe if he came back sick, not able to talk again, not able to walk again, so you realize that you suffer ambiguous loss. Now, families are left in a state of suspended mourning. Can you imagine? Suspended mourning. you actually don't know when this is going to come to an end. I think this is one of the most painful situations for anybody to go through, that you are grieving. And you know, we say that there are some determinants of grief. And one determinant of grief is how a person died. Are you with me? Is the relationship that used to be there between you and them. It determines how you grieve. Another determinant of grief is where they died. Sometimes you can imagine when somebody, you live just in the shadows of, you don't know whether your person is alive. And this can really prolong grief, because naturally, grief ought to have closure. There has to be that moment when you have closure. But for somebody whose loved ones have disappeared, they don't know where they are. They suffer this kind of grief, but at the same time, they are not able to have closure. And many times, people are not able to understand, and especially because we live in a society that has not fully embraced the whole question of mental health. And sometimes you hear people saying, huyu ni kujifanya. Are you with me? You've gone through a lot of emotional, psychological injuries, but very few people are able to understand what this means for you. So therefore, people are not able to move forward because they do not know whether their loved ones are dead or even alive. This unending cycle of hope and despair leads to chronic anxiety, depression, and in some cases, suicidal thoughts. When somebody is not able to navigate, these motions, roller coasters of grief, sometimes post-traumatic stress disorder, sometimes becoming, having anxiety, sometimes even giving birth to some illnesses that affect our minds. And in its worst case, suicide. And let me say this. When people commit suicide, they do not commit suicide because they want to die. Are you with me? Because there is, again, another misconception from the society. And you hear them saying, he killed himself. Nobody kills himself. People do not commit suicide because they want to die. As a matter of fact, if you have a moment of engaging with such people when they are at the verge of committing suicide, you would be surprised to hear them tell you how they dread death. But people commit suicide as they try to run away from an overwhelming mental, psychological, emotional state. So in other words, the only way to end their pain is to take themselves or to take their lives away. And therefore, the same way I have been guided to change from victims to survivors, I also want you to change your language around people who, and the families who are experiencing some of these things, from he killed himself. There is nobody in their right state of mind that can take away their lives. Are you with me? Now, the emotional impact of enforced disappearance is immeasurable. Loved ones, families are left to grapple with a range of emotions: fear, anger, helplessness, and overwhelming sadness. I listened to Mama here as she narrated her ordeal, moving from one hospital to another, from one police station to another, from one mortuary to another. And I think what IMLU are doing is so commendable, because some of these people really need our support, even when the whole world is not able to understand them. Then in their search for justice, as if losing her son was not enough, she goes through more police brutality. And I think it is so sad. That whole narrative really moved me. And therefore, families living in fear, emotional void that cannot be filled. The constant uncertainty takes a toll on relationships as the strain of not knowing erodes trust and stability within families. In Kenya, the recent cases have left families in deep emotional turmoil. Parents, siblings, friends of the disappeared have been breaking down in public. And we have been seeing this on television, where people are just breaking down. And from where I come from, my professional background, I usually pity and feel sad for those people. And sometimes I feel annoyed when I see, and I seek your forgiveness for saying this, but when I see journalists pursuing them, in full glare of camera to narrate their story, because their story is making news. Are you with me? Because people will be glued. And I think that is not the right space for such people to talk about their pain. What IMLU and others are doing is the right space for those people to vent out their pain. So they are not supposed to be there to make news. They are supposed to be assisted so that they can heal. Sociological impact of enforced disappearance extends beyond the immediate family to affect an entire community. The disappearance of individuals creates a climate of fear and mistrust, particularly in regions where such disappearances are frequent. I remember during the Kanu era, our late mother would tell us, hey, keep quiet. Unajua ukuta huwa zinaongea. How many of us have ever heard that? So you are made to stay in fear. You don't know what is going to happen to you. And because we had a neighbor, he is also now late, so I can say this loudly, who was working with a special branch those years. And my mother would really fear, well, keep quiet. In fact, you are not supposed to mention the name Moi in our home. And I know this was a very common practice in many homes. So, and we would fear. And whenever we heard the sound of his car, we would be told to keep quiet. We were not supposed to talk about anything. And therefore, the entire community, and especially in those regions, they are forced to keep quiet. They cannot talk about their pain. And I once again want to commend what this organization is doing to give people spaces to talk about how they are feeling. Because that is one way of helping people overcome the pain, overcome the grief. Very, very important. Now, in Kenya, the targeting of young protesters has deepened the generational divide. And I think we have observed this, with many young people feeling disillusioned and disconnected from the state. True or false? And they are, in fact, I even saw it coming closer home, that even in churches, particularly in churches, where they do not want to, they feel like even the people who are there are not able to resonate with their pain, unfortunately. And it creates this generational divide, whereby they feel not heard. The government's heavy-handed response has fueled anger and resentment, further alienating a generation already grappling with economic and social challenges. And forced disappearance also has a ripple effect on the social fabric of communities. Families of the disappeared often face social isolation, like our brother said, stigmatization, particularly when their loved ones are labeled as criminals. Are you with me? Or even terrorists without following due process. You can imagine. I one time encountered a neighbor, a gentleman who was my age, who was shot dead by police in the city. And then, they will label such people And they will even say, you know, he had a pistol. Have you heard those stories? Or he had this and that. And therefore, I remember the kind of burial that man was given. It was very sad to think about it, because even the family was worried. They needed to get to dispose the body as early as possible. You know, they were not given time to grieve. There was a heavy presence of police, and nobody could talk about it. You can imagine, especially where I come from, and generally in Africa and Kenya, to be specific, where we say that it's a community of hot climate culture. And hot climate culture are those people who come together. You know, they are not like the West. In the West, we say they are called climate cultures, because when you are visiting with a person, you need an appointment to visit even your parent. Have you heard about such things? But here, we are hot climate cultures. And we all know what a burial right means to a family, because it brings closure. But then they were never given that opportunity. In fact, it's like they were acting under duress, that we want that body disposed as early as possible. And I'm told that the family had to go to city mortuary, organize with the mortuary attendants, that tomorrow morning at around 4 a.m., and the body is just going to Nyeri. Are you with me? 4 a.m., we want that body ready and packed. And that is what happened, because they were fearing. They were being stigmatized, staying under fear, working under duress. And it was so sad that at 9 a.m., there had been some people set apart to carry out the activity. And when the village people were coming to attend the burial the way we are used to, nakuta iko kaburi hapo, hata hujui alizikwa na nani. But this is what usually happens. And I think when we say that it doesn't just affect the family or the individual, it is even the entire community. You know, they live in that isolation, stigmatization, and particularly when their loved ones have been labeled criminals and terrorists. This further compounds their suffering, as they are ostracized from the very communities that should provide support for them. And I think this is the discussion that we need to have. I don't have time to talk about the economic consequences, because it is also there. You know, we have watched in the news people saying, you know, this was our breadwinner. In counseling, when somebody comes for grief counseling, one of the questions I never forget to ask is that what else has gone together with the person that you are grieving for? And you hear people talking a lot of many other things which have disappeared, which have gone away from them, other than the person who has died. Some will say, he was paying my school fees. You know, he was the breadwinner. She was doing this and that. She was the backbone of this family. And therefore, they lose multiple things. And therefore, I love what this organization is doing once again. The state's refusal to account for the disappearances only exacerbates the suffering of the victims, families, individuals in Kenya. And therefore, I think we need to have a voice that is able to bring this to the attention of the public, but most importantly, to help the survivors who have gone through it to be able to spring back to their normal functioning once again. And therefore, as KCPA, Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association, we like partnering with such organizations, because we have a pool of counselors across the nation, and we are able to, at the touch of a button, be able to reach out to someone who is in Kilifi to respond to a case, be able to talk to someone who is in Garissa in Mombasa, in Nyeri, in Bugoma, to respond to some of those cases. And therefore, on behalf of KCPA, I would be very, very grateful and interested for us to be able to work together, because one of the things that you realize, even as you assist the survivors and the victims' families, is to be able to know the available resource referral pathways. And as a pool of counselors, as an organization of counselors, we want to be counted among your resources, that you can reach out to us and we are able to help where we can. So with those few or many remarks, I want to appreciate you for giving me this opportunity to come and share with us. I wish we could have more time to discuss about this mental, emotional, psychological, social impact of people who have survived this enforced disappearance. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Banakago, for that presentation. Really, as you talk about it, people really begin to reflect on what we must do as opposed to what we have been used to doing, because this is something that needs to be given a special thought. For some time now, the conversation around mental health and psychosocial support has become a conversation that is being pushed to the center. Because in many instances, even as you talk about people who take away their lives, I really learn a lot. But in many instances, people are pushed to the wall because of circumstances that are beyond their control, and especially in places that they take their longest time, especially workplaces or any other social places. So really, this is a conversation that we must begin to push through so that people are supported at initial stages before we lapse or before the situations get out of hand. Thank you very much for that presentation. I want to ask my colleague, the guy from IMLU, to come forward for the video presentation. I don't know how long that will take. Who is guiding us on the video? You're here? Okay. Probably just introduce for us the video and we'll be able to know exactly what this is all about. Or Vivian can quickly help us on what that is all about so that we just get properly, Thank you.
Is it good morning or good afternoon? I stand guided. Good afternoon. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we are together, and I'm happy that we've been able to catch up with the time, especially from this morning, and also to recognize everyone who took the stage. Also, thank you, Moffat, for leading us through that insightful session. Before you is a video from IRCT. I was able to introduce IRCT this morning, those who were here. But for purposes of those who were not here, allow me to mention that IMLU does not work alone. And I know that you've received a lot of flowers, and I'm really grateful for that on behalf of the organization. But we do not work alone. We work internationally. I'm sure we understand that hii Kenya ukipigana vita peke yako utakuwa monitored. So mmejua hiyo sasa. It's better to work as a team. And so as a civil society or as a non-governmental organization that works around issues of torture, EJEs, allow me to mention, and the Police Reforms Working Group will mention this as well, you can be easily targeted. And so what we have done is that we have created a network of organizations in Kenya through the Police Reforms Working Group, and the technical committee is chaired by Atiang, who is the moderator for the day. Then regionally, we've partnered with organizations like Pan-African Rehabilitation Institute, PARI, African Commission of Human and People's Rights. We met the chair recently, also presenting on the situation in Kenya. Then internationally as well, we have organizations that deal on torture. And International Rehabilitation Council for torture victims is one of them. And we told them that we are meeting today. We are meeting survivors of torture, survivors of enforced disappearance, and even mothers of victims of EJEs. And they felt that it is important they record a special message for us, and this is the message. I think that's a proper introduction for the video. So this is from our international partner where we collaborate, and they have recorded just for this purpose and for this meeting only. Enjoy. It's a very short video. Yeah.
Last time we were in Kenya together with 22 organizations of the International Rehabilitation Council. Giving was a very active participant in talking about the global standards for rehabilitation. Today we're here to express our commitment to supporting torture survivors and survivors of enforced disappearances, and working with human rights and justice and dignity. We know this is an ongoing struggle. We think about the peaceful protest in Kenya and the violent crackdown, brutal crackdown by the Kenyan police recently, but also last year. We know the impact of victims and their families. We know the psychological, social, and the legal consequences. We know, and IRCT has published in our torture journal, a scientific journal, articles about enforced disappearances, documenting the psychological impact on families. And naming it distorted. We really need global solidarity around this issue. It can't be one victim speaking out. It can't be one organization speaking out. We have to speak out together. We do this by making calls to action. So speaking is one thing, writing is another, but calling for action, calling for legislative change, calling for police who will actually investigate crimes, follow up on unresolved cases, and take those concrete steps to stop this. We know that impunity fuels more violence, and we know that violence leads to torture and forced
Greetings to
disappearances.
IMLU. Last time we were in Kenya together with 22 organizations of the International Rehabilitation Council. IMLU was a very active participant in talking about the global standards for rehabilitation. Today we're here today to express our commitment to supporting torture survivors and survivors of enforced disappearances, and working with human rights and justice and dignity. We know this is an ongoing struggle. We think about the peaceful protests in Kenya and the violent crackdown, brutal crackdown by the Kenyan police recently, but also last year. We know the impact on victims and their families. We know the psychological, the social, and the legal consequences. We know, and IRCT has published in our torture journal, a scientific journal, articles about enforced disappearances, documenting the psychological impact on families, and naming it as torture. We really need global solidarity around this issue. It can't be one victim speaking out. It can't be one organization speaking out. We have to speak out together.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's fairly brief, but also to the point. I need to recognize one of our colleagues who came in before I asked Davis to come. Martin Mavenjina works for the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights. And probably, Martin, just I give you a mic 1 minute to say who you are.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, good afternoon. Sorry, I was trying to multitask, but you might all be aware women cannot multitask. We're used to concentrating on one thing. So was trying to pen up something there. Yes, so like Jacob said, I am Martin Mavenjina. I work with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, where I serve as a senior program advisor for transitional justice. So in that role, I work with victims and survivors of torture, cruel and inhuman and degrading treatment, survivors of victims and survivors of enforced disappearance or even extradition execution. So we also form part of the police reform working group, and I'm happy to be here. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. Just motioned me. Yes, so I'm happy to be here today, to commemorate this important day with you, because you do realize that in Kenya we don't have specific legislation that criminalizes the crime of enforced disappearance. So it is my hope that the different policy interventions by all of us would actually, put some would impose on the government to ensure that they come up one that criminalizes this heinous with a robust mechanism for oversight, because we realize that most cases of disappearances usually occur in the context. It's actually rare to find people being disappeared in security operations. So that as we continue engaging with relevant state actors in the government, that they will be able to come up with the robust policy mechanisms to ensure that enforced disappearance is an issue of the past, but more importantly, that all those security agencies or even officers who are actually implicated in this heinous crime are actually held to account. I think the previous presenter spoke about the numbers or the number of people who had been disappeared in the context of protests. So you can imagine, in the last 6 weeks, we saw over 60 Kenyans being disappeared by our security agencies. And you all remember there was a confirmation by the director of criminal investigations when Mashara Gaitha was captured. They told us that they actually did not mean to actually capture him. So in short, it was an admission by themselves that they actually have a long hand in all this. So it is my hope that these fellows will actually be held to account. It is my hope also that our security agencies conduct themselves as envisaged by the framers of our constitution, basically respect the rule of law and adhere to human rights principles. So I'll leave it at that, Jacob, because I know there is a session that I'll be able to, I'll be moderating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martin. We actually initially intended to have a panel, but some of the state agencies were not able to come. But also, if you listen to what Wangeshi said in the morning, it was also strategic so that we have voices of survivors and make this space fairly safe. So it was a question of safe space, and Maurice did handle a session before tea, and you could see what really it meant. So there was that intentional approach to step down state presence in this meeting. So I think that is really not, I just wanted to emphasize that. So allow me to invite Davis Emoit. Davis represents the Witness Protection Agency, and he would be speaking on behalf of the institution and also be able to tell us exactly, as an agency, what this is all about and what we need to do together. Davis, welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know where to start because for us, we're not used to cameras. The environment we operate is a covert environment. I'm here on behalf of the Chief Executive, that is Madam Jedida Waruhiu, who sent her apologies why she was, due to exigencies of duties, she was not able to attend. Nevertheless, I'm representing her here, and I hope that I will step into her shoes. To start with, maybe I'm going to read her remarks. These were her remarks, and allow me to go through the remarks by the Chief Executive. That is the remarks by Jedida Warhu, Chief Executive, Witness Protection Agency, during the commemoration of the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearance. This Friday, 30th August 2024. Wangeshi Mwende, Executive Director, Independent Medical Legal Unit, that's IMLU, non-state actors present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Witness Protection Agency, I'm happy this morning to be part of this auspicious occasion, the commemoration of the International Day for Victims of Enforced Disappearances. Thank you. It's timely because it comes at a time when the country has recently witnessed volatile political situations. I want to reflect on the words of Hillary Clinton, the former US Secretary of State, when she says, the worst thing that can happen in a democracy is, as well as in an individual's life, is when to become cynical about the future and lose hope. That is the end, and we cannot leave that to happen in our country. When people lose hope, we should therefore shun injustices caused by enforced disappearances and police brutality. Justice should be done at all times to ensure fairness and sanctity of life. I take note of the significant contribution that IMLU and other non-state actors to the justice system, especially the survivors of police abuse of power and efforts made to prosecute the officers involved in the heinous acts. Your efforts to strengthen the justice system is commendable. The working together with the other stakeholders and community leaders has yielded fruits, especially when responding to violations of human rights. Your commitment has ensured that public justice systems work for the poor through documenting human rights abuses and educating the general public about these abuses and mobilizing intervention on behalf of the victims. The agency, in partnership with the other stakeholders in the justice sector, also take pride in being part of the holistic reform program of the criminal justice system in Kenya. As a country, we have witnessed the emergence of new forms of organized and complex crimes, such as terrorism, cyber crimes, drug and human trafficking, among others. I urge you to strengthen the existing collaboration so as to maintain the rule of law. At a fundamental level, non-state actors present an opportunity for us all to build a strong nation that respects the rule of law. Therefore, the pressure for accountability by the duty bearers has profound impact on the success of justice prevailing to victims of enforced disappearances. At WPA, we are alive to your role and contribution to the justice sector, and more so on witness protection. Witnesses are cornerstone of any successful criminal justice system and is a fundamental human right exposed in Article 50, subsection Section 8 and 9. Therefore, there is no doubt, therefore, that the importance of witness protection is widely recognized as a unique and a valuable tool in promotion of the rule of law the world all over. I'm glad that the criminal justice sector recognizes this importance and supports the enactment of legislation that safeguards the safety of witnesses. The surety of feeling protected enables witnesses to volunteer to assist law enforcement agencies during investigation, prosecution, and ultimately determination of cases. As I conclude, I want to reiterate the importance of interagency collaboration. This is what will push the positive results when investigating and prosecuting cases on victims of enforced disappearances. I wish to summarize with a quotation from Henry Ford, who was an American industrialist and business magnate credited for founding the Ford Motor Company. This is what he said: coming together is a beginning, and staying together is the progress, and working together is success. That's Henry Ford. Thank you, and may God bless you. So those are the remarks by my CEO. I've been asked to briefly talk about the agency, the Witness Protection Agency. I wish I could project. Yeah, it can't stop here. It's sliding. Now, maybe just to start, how many of you have heard about the Witness Protection Agency? That's great. That's great. Now, as I said earlier, that I'm a Moy Dennis, Deputy Chief Operations Officer at the agency. I work at the headquarters, assisting the CEO to achieve the agency's mandate. As you have seen from the Chief Executive speech, that witness protection is a recognized fundamental human rights, and that's why we are here. We are not here by accident. And Madam Wangeshi, I've been fortunate to attend. I think this is the third time I'm attending this function. When I listen to them, you feel it, and it's anchored in our act. So when others are not here, we shall be here. Witnesses are cornerstone of any successful criminal justice system. Because when you want to preserve the, what do we call it? That testifiable evidence, you must have witnesses. And for us, for the purpose of this meeting today, we are saying we are talking about the victim witnesses. We are saying victim witnesses just to meet the threshold of the act in defining who is a witness. That is our vision, to be a world-class witness protection service. That's our mission, to provide special protection to threatened and intimidated witnesses through the witness protection program. That is where you get the difference between what is our role, how do we differentiate what the police are doing or any other security agency is doing. You differentiate that we at the agency, we provide special protection to witnesses. And this protection goes beyond the physical protection of witnesses. It deals even with the well-being, the psychosocial. I had somebody talking about psychosocial support to witnesses. That's our motto, Shahidi Bila Hofu. Our core values is teamwork, integrity, confidentiality, boldness, innovation, and diversity. The environment, I did mention, the environment we work at the agency is very covert. And if you read the act, we are independent. We are not under any government ministry or department. We are independent agency where we get our fund direct from the consolidated fund. Those are the principles in protection of witnesses. That participation in the program is voluntary. That witness protection should not be granted as a reward or incentive to testify. As you know well, why we want witnesses to testify is to stop those crimes from happening. So the first and foremost thing, we are here today, let those victim witnesses come out and speak. Through doing that, we shall stop these people who commit these crimes. To me, I say the people who commit these crimes are criminals at the individual level. To us, that's the participation in the program should not make somebody better off than he or we before entering the program. entry into the witness protection program is usually the last resort. We are saying that because maintaining persons in the program is very expensive. And we usually go to that in maintaining the threshold of the Constitution, that who is a witness or who is a victim witnesses. We only take those people who matter and who can assist us get a conviction in a court of law. Why do we need protection? To make sure that the experience of testimony does not result in further harm, suffering, or trauma. It's a duty of care, you see. And those are the acts you can read at your own, for your own. That is our act, that's Cap 79 laws of Kenya, and the other functions of the agency. This is what we do. We determine the criteria for admission to and removal from the witness protection program. We determine the type of protection measure to be applied. We advise government ministries, department, agency, or any other person on adoption of strategies and measures on witness protection. You can write to us. And when we go through your case, we feel that this case does not come within our mandate. We shall always advise you and even link you to that specific government ministry. Because if you talk of ODPP, they are part of our board members. If you talk of the National Police, they are part of our board members. So if we see that your matter falls squarely before IPOA, we shall call IPOA and tell them this is your client, kindly deal with it. And if in the police or the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, we shall call you, assist that victim or witness to access that particular service he or she needs. That advice role is key to us. And we have really assisted so many victim witnesses on that. Our presence, currently we have 4 regions. We have the central regions, which covers this Nairobi. And then we have the coastal region. And if you want to reach us, you just go to Milimani Locals, 4th floor, room 413. In the coastal region, we are yet to operationalize that office, the liaison office, but we have a region there, a full-fledged region in the coast, based in Mombasa. In Western region, we have a full-fledged region there, based in Kisumu. And Eastern region is a new region, we have just started it, it's based in Embu. That's how they define a witness in the Act, and maybe we can just read it briefly. Is a person who needs protection arising from a threat or a risk on account of being a crucial witness and has given or agreed to give evidence for the state for an offense or a hearing or proceedings, has given or agreed to give evidence on a commission of an offense, has made a statement to a police officer, is required to give evidence in a court, commission, or tribunal outside Kenya. And usually this is where it gets most of the people out, because that Act limits that you must be required to give evidence in a court of law, commission, or tribunal. But currently, there is the president pronounced that even the issues of whistleblower, there's from his own words that we are going to have changes, the structural changes in our Act to include the whistleblower bill. Who are the persons who qualify for protection in the agency? By virtue of being related to a witness, you qualify for protection. If I'm threatened as Dennis, my family, my wife, my children, my maid, my houseboy shall all qualify for protection. If I support my parents, even my parents will qualify for that protection. On account of testimony given by a witness himself, that's 2 is the witness himself, or for any other reason the director considers sufficient, especially like the caregivers. There are some people who come who are very vulnerable. When they come to the program, they must come with specific caregivers. These are the protection measures that we offer as an institution. That is physical and armed protection. All our officers are armed, and they provide physical protection, especially when there's a court hearing. All our officers will be armed, and they will provide that physical protection. We relocate witnesses to places of safety. If you are threatened in the Westlands here, we shall relocate you to a place of safety where we are sure that you will be, is a safe area for you. And change of identity. Unfortunately, we have not operational that, and nobody has even come to request for that. So it is still a gray area. or any other measures necessary to ensure safety of a protected person. This one applies to specifically for civil servants, like police officers, or just civil servants who may be threatened because of the evidence they are giving in their place of work. We shall have that the advisory law now. We shall engage with that specific department and even apply for transfer of those officers to a safer places. And we have done it, and it's good. During court proceedings, we also have those 5 protection measures: in camera hearings, use of pseudonyms, reduction of identifying information, use of video link, and of scarring, distorting identity of witnesses. This one, we are usually, if you go to Milimani Law Court, you will find the witness boxes. That's how we scar identity of witnesses. And of late, we have also introduced another one, which I think is not captured here. We use voice distortion, especially in cases of defilement or gender-based cases, where somebody can easily tell who is that. If a father defiled a child, a daughter, he can easily tell from the voice. But we have recently upgraded our equipment. We have bought a very good voice distortion equipment to aid in court protection measures. Inclusion in the witness protection program. First, for you to be included into our program, you must apply. Once you have applied, and the witness can apply by himself, by a law enforcement agency can apply for the witness, a public prosecutor, a legal representative, or any of us in this house can refer a witness for protection at the agency. And all admission to the program is a prerogative of the director. That's after thorough risk assessment has been done. The Act gives us the procedure for doing the risk assessment. These are the forms that are usable in the agency. If you want these forms, you just go to our website, you find these forms. They are public documents. We are saying Form A is a witness himself. Is a witness. If I'm threatened, I'm literate, I can read and write. I know what's right and wrong. I just go to that website, download that Form A, and apply for protection directly to the agency. If you can't post it, at the end of this presentation, I will show you the address. If you can't post it in that address, you just drop it at Milimani Law Courts. By a person related to the witness, by a person acting on behalf of the child, for example, parent or a guardian. And then Form E is for us, our officers, who, when they go to the field and they have already commenced the process of risk assessment, and the witness declines at the latter stages, they use that Form D to decline. And then Form D, declination by protection by an adult. These are people who are admitted to the program, and because when you come to the program you have to sign an MOU. It has conditions. When you feel that you don't meet those conditions, you are free to opt out. Because we did say that joining the program is voluntary. That's admission criteria for us. The application form received by the agency. All applications received by the agency must always be acknowledged. And once acknowledgement has been done, officers shall be assigned to carry out threat and risk assessment. Because we believe that why do you come to the program? Because you have been threatened, because of the evidence you have in the matter that is before court, tribunal, or commission. Once this officer conduct the threat and risk assessment, they will make a recommendation for admission to the director, or they will advise otherwise. Decision for admission by the CEO is based on the seriousness of the offense, the nature and importance of the evidence, nature of perceived danger to the witness, and other viable methods of protection. Yes, such as the matter before the right considered relevant. As we have said, that sometimes you get a police officer has been threatened. You can't admit him. You can just add a viable method is to transfer him to a place of safety where he'll be safe. This is the MOU we sign with our clients, setting out the basis for inclusion and the do's and don'ts. When you're in the program, you're not allowed to use a smartphone. When you're in the program, you cannot go shopping for yourself by yourself. You must be escorted by officers. So sometimes people come to the program and during the signing of this MOU, they opt out because of the conditions. When you have been admitted and you want to opt out, these are the cessation of protection. A request can be done by the participants that I want to opt out. It is voluntary. We allow you to opt out. Two, when a participant breaches the terms of the MOU, when you're exposing the program and you are becoming a threat even to yourself, you should always be your participation in the program will be terminated. Anything done by the parent likely to threaten the security or compromise the integrity of the program. Yes. What is our role? Role of WIPIA in victim witness protection. As we are here today, this is what we do. We provide, the agents provide, we are dealing, specifically for us, we are dealing with the victim witnesses, because currently we have the Victim Protection Board, which has not been operationalized, but we have a CEO. But for us, for the victim witnesses, this is what we do. We provide victim witness support. We provide counseling and psychological support. We have a whole division dealing with the counseling and social event support. We provide clothing and medical assistance. That's what we are saying. We are providing special protection. Apart from the physical protection, we also go to the well-being of that witness. We provide housing and food. We liaise with the other relevant agencies, organizations, and embassies on how to support that witness. Continuation, protection of victims from physical harm. We have safe houses all over the country. We take them to our safe houses where they'll be very secure. They'll be secured as their way to give their testimony in a court of law. We provide, as I've said, armed protection. We relocate witnesses. We use intermediaries during court hearings, especially for the vulnerable group. They use pseudonyms while testifying. We don't reveal their identities. Their matters are, all our clients who come to the agency, all those cases are heard in camera. All of them is a standard. For trafficking in Paco, we use the national referral mechanism. We liaise with them for cases involving trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants. These are the few challenges when protecting victim witnesses. One of these, the language barrier, especially when dealing with the cases of trafficking in persons. We will gain that is a key factor. Most victim witnesses suffer a lot of trauma and psychological issues. They need immediate counseling and medical support. In fact, for us, when you get into our program, it's only the initial assessment is when we will know, is when we shall assess you, maybe without the psychosocial counselor. But the preceding assessment, they must be. You shall be. We shall give you psychosocial counseling and support, those therapies, continuous, to enable victim witnesses to heal. We provide medical and clothing needs of our witnesses. Most of the victims do not have enough clothes and food due to the conditions that have been held. And we have made it a standard for us when a victim witness comes to the program, we have to allocate some money and they are both clothes and food. These are the challenges in terms of we have an inadequate budget allocation because entirely we are being financed by the Treasury, National Treasury. We have mentioned those. Lack of appropriate court infrastructure, because when you look at where is our victim witness more vulnerable, for us is at the court premises. At the court premises, we need holding rooms so that when we have a hearing here, our officers should be able to access the court and have a holding room. And nobody should know when they will come with their witness to that court. But that is not sometimes attainable because most of the courts don't have those holding rooms. And some courts don't even have the exit and entry points. Just 2 or even 1. Low awareness levels, and that's why we are here, that we exist. And for us, as I said, that we believe in the human rights approach, we help victim witnesses, and not theoretically. That's something that is happening. When you look at our cases of GBVs, those are almost all of them are victim witnesses. They are victim, and the agencies have protected them, and they have testified, and we have assisted them to resettle in their respective homes. Issues of culture. You see, failure of victims to speak up. An offense and a crime can occur, and victims don't speak up. What happened to you? If you could have kept quiet, nobody could have known what has happened. And now, when we don't know what happened, we cannot come up with the measures to mitigate the same in the future. And then the high expectations. Those are our contacts. When you want to reach us, that's how you can reach us. I think I request to end there. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Davis, for that presentation and really just capturing what exactly you do. We're almost coming to the tail end of this. Just one or two more things. But even as I invite Yagon to come and make the commitment call, it's important to note that a couple of days ago, quite a bit of things have happened and happening in terms of transitions that are going to be very key. For example, the policing partner, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the term of the current board ends tomorrow. So I'm sure they leave office today. We were privileged to join the event with Wangeshi on Wednesday, and quite a bit of heavy things. I'm saying that because if you look at this roll-up banner, the other side, there's a commitment around IPOA. So we really need to see what happens in terms of the next board. I want to mention that because we follow this as Police Reforms Working Group, and as Wangeshi said, I chair the technical team. For those who are keen, yesterday, I had to listen to the president because of those reasons. He's already appointed, recruitment panels, 4 of them, one of them being for their poor board. So it means they are not wasting time. So we need to occupy that space because the panel is already appointed for the next IPOA board. That would be the 3rd layer of IPOA board. The other panel that is also ready would be the one for, Salaries and Remuneration Commission is up. NGEC, I didn't know that the current term of NGEC is ending, and also the one on Commission on Administrative Justice. I'm mentioning this because there's really going to be heavy lobbying and consultations around the next cadre of commissioners, so people occupy those offices because those institutions matter for the fact of criminal justice, but more importantly, access to justice. We're also awaiting the swearing in of the incoming Inspector General. Now we have an acting IG. Masengeli is the DIG for Kenya Police Service, but the acting IG for the National Police Service. These are important to mention, as Martin said, because then they are the duty bearers. And remember, Martin reminded us that we don't have a legal framework for prosecuting people who commit or perpetuate what we call enforced disappearances. So we really want to put this together, some task. Wangeshi says we must probably convene to see what next, including, because if we have our statistics, I'm mentioning those offices because I know that because of those transitions, we can either lose it or we can pick it from there to begin a very constructive engagement with the next team that's coming in. So allow me to invite Yegon to come and preside over the call. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Emmanuel Yegon. I've forgotten my notes. Yes, my name is Emmanuel Yegon, and my work is very simple, to lead you through the commitment call. I think we have had the narration by the survivors. We have had the expert, the impact, the psychological impact from an expert perspective. So what are we going to do? Tumesikia nyinyi mliodhulumiwa jinsi mulivyofanyiwa, na sasa tunafaa tufanye nini ili tukomeshe huu utekaji nyara. So hatufai tu tukuje tuzungumze alafu tuende nyumbani tusahau kuhusu hii maneno. Inafaa kila mtu achukue jukumu la kukomesha huu utekaji nyara. So before I welcome Wangeshi, who will lead us through that together with the police reform working group. There are some reflections I have made as a result of listening to the narration of the survivors. One of them is, how old is torture? If you could listen to the survivors, we had a survivor in the 1980s. And then we have one as late as 2024. So the regimes keep changing, but one thing remains constant: torture and enforced disappearance. So that's one of my first reflection. Then the second one is just the impact of torture. One of the survivors said he went through the morgue and went through 17 bodies looking for her loved one. I don't know how many of you have interacted with a dead body. As IMLU, one of our assignments is conducting postmortem or attending postmortem sessions where we see a dead body. So I don't know how many have interacted with a dead body here. Or quite a number. So you can imagine she saw 17 bodies. So you can imagine the impact that it had for her. Yes, so that's my second reflection. Then my third one is the sophistication of the state. Inaitwa mkono wa serikali. I think she gave us an example that she had switched off her phone. She was not on social media, not using any smartphone, not even withdrawing M-Pesa. And she was able to be located where she is. So just how sophisticated is the state? Mkono, sijui kama inaitwa mkono wa serikali ama ni mkono wa sheria ama ni mkono wa serikali. Yes, so that's my third reflection. Then in the interest of time, probably the last one, we've had 2 law students who are victims of enforced disappearance. I wonder how that has affected you as a law student, how you view the law. In law school, where they are now, they are taught how to go to court and present cases. And one of them, they are taught how to do what they call an habeas corpus application. An habeas corpus application, which we do as IMLU, is when somebody is lost, you go to court for the court to order this person to be brought alive or dead. So I wonder for my students whether that has had a cultural shift. When you are taught an habeas corpus in criminal litigation, I wonder how that sinks. And probably, hopefully that will inspire you to come and join us, probably volunteer some of the time, and join us as a legal department as we do this. Thank you for that. So I welcome Wangeshi to do the commitment call together with the police working group. Thank you.
Could I call upon the police reforms working group members here and any of the victims and survivors who would want to join us in making this commitment call? Please feel free to join us kindly. Just come to the stage. Do come to the stage. Anyone who feels strongly that they would want to be part of this commitment call, please do come to the stage. I think we move this. Can we move this towards the middle? Move it this way. Eh? Okay, if you could come here, because I know you have a specific message. Anyone with a specific message, please come right next to me. Yeah. All right. Today has been a very emotional day, very, very emotional. And I just want to first appreciate all of us again that are here, but to really thank those that found the courage to speak. I cannot thank you enough. Those who felt that they are not there yet, it is fine. It is absolutely fine because we know how painful it is. In our presence, we have victims and survivors, as you have heard, from the 1980s. In our presence, we have survivors, as we are reminded by Egon, of us recently, as a couple of weeks. But we also have family members here present of people that are still missing. And some have asked me to just let them sit, and I'm really just glad that you're here, that you found the courage to come and join us today. And we respect you. And we pray with you that your loved ones may be found for you to get closure. Allow me to once again, just before we read this statement, ask that we all stand again for a minute of silence, but really as a rallying call to our leadership, that the people standing here besides me and the people standing in this hall today are making a cry that their loved ones either are released or they are told where they are. Families need closure. But not just about families. It's about respect and safeguarding of our Constitution. So let's just observe a minute silence. Thank you. So we want to read our official statement. You can have your seats, please. Now, the ones who are here with me, tafadhali mkae kama mngependa kukaa na sisi hapa. I will give a minute first to somebody who has a specific message to our constitutional commissions. If you're ready, please, let's start off with you, and then we can read the official statement. Do you still feel you want to give a recommendation?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon again. I feel nice to see you. and actually seated and waiting to hear. It's very important for all of us, and I appreciate. The official statement I want to make is that we need to have our government accountable. Our institutions, we have strong institutions created by the Constitution, but we have a challenge that all these institutions are controlled by the apex, by the top. For example, we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Judiciary will do their job. Legislature, that is parliament, will do their job, but the executive would refuse recommendations, not implement what other institutions of government have recommended, all have ordered in case of courts. We need to check and call out our government. Please be accountable. The Constitution of Kenya applies to all. And I believe, as it was done by the drafters of our beautiful Constitution, nobody, no institution should be above the law. Thank you.
So yesterday, we are reminded that the president of this great land of ours did issue a statement or made a comment that he does not have names of persons that have been disappeared. And if anybody knows of such names and persons, is encouraged to report this. Today, as we celebrate the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearances, we want to state categorically that we have heard voices of families that have lost their persons to state security apparatus. We have seen faces of people who dropped everything they had and took on the armor of courage to share with us their testimonies. These are real people. We have seen them, we have heard them. Some standing here with us, some seated, some having made their comments online, some having reached out to the different members of the Police Reforms Working Group, and it is a reality. And so we want to say that as a Police Reforms Working Group, we are deeply concerned by the continued practice of enforced disappearances and arbitrary arrests, despite the President's promise to end this practice. We urgently call upon President William Ruto to fulfill his legal obligation to uphold and protect the Constitution and to end the harrowing practice of enforced disappearances and arbitrary arrests. I don't know how many of you today have either not shed a tear or not been deeply troubled by what we had. Harrowing experiences. On the 17th of August, Muslims for Human Rights Board member Khalif Khalifa was arbitrarily arrested for insisting that the police follow the recent court order banning the deployment of masked officers during routine police duties. We reiterate Article 49 of the Constitution of Kenya, which protects the rights of all armed and arrested persons, of the rights of all arrested persons, including access to legal assistance and clear information on reasons surrounding the arrest. Indeed, we had one of us here say, the people who abducted her and took her forcefully were masked, yet they interrogated her on behalf of the government. So we do know that they are state agencies, but she calls them criminals. because they were not in police uniform and they were not identifiable. And the court has actually ruled against masking of police officers. We call upon the Inspector General of Police to hold to account police officers who executed the unlawful arrest and uphold and arrests, so to speak, and uphold constitutional procedures when effecting arrests.
Thank you. So I'll reintroduce myself again. I am Martin Mavenjina. I work with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and I'll read the next the next part of the statement. So on the 19th of August, Bob Njagi, Islam Longonot, and Jamil Longonot were abducted in broad daylight following the Kitengela protests. It has been 11 days since these three individuals were separated from their families in unclear circumstances, in total disregard to the rule of law and fundamental human rights. We call upon the Inspector General of Police to investigate and reveal the identities of the men who abducted Bob, Islam, and Jamil, and have them presented before a court of competent jurisdiction in line with the Constitution, with the constitutional provisions and orders issued by the High Court in petition number 436 of 2024. We urge President Ruto to uphold his promise and quickly address enforced disappearances, abductions, and arbitrary arrests, and ensure that all state agencies abide by the law when exercising arrests. The pain and suffering endured by victims and their families must come to an end. The government must take immediate steps to hold those responsible for these violations accountable and prevent further occurrences. Your current leadership on this matter is crucial in restoring justice and upholding human rights for all Kenyans. I will call my colleague Jacob to read the next part of the statement.
Thank you very much. We call on the National Assembly to remain seized by and act on those institutional violations and enact legislation against forceful disappearances, accountable those responsible for enforced disappearances. This statement is signed by the Police Reforms Working Group Kenya, an alliance of national and grassroots organizations committed to professional, accountable, and human rights compliance policing. They include, for purposes of the Shield for Justice, Wangu Kanja Foundation, Constitution and Education Reform Consortium, CRECO, Kenyans for Peace, Truth and Justice, Peace Brigade International Kenya, and Usalama Reforms Forum. Thank you very much.
So that is our call. But before we end with this commitment session, I don't know whether there's anybody else who wants to add anything. This has been the day of recognizing victims of enforced disappearance, and I would like victims, survivors to take the center stand. So anyone wants to say anything else before we close? Please feel free.
Good afternoon. As I had mentioned earlier, my name is Nadia Nthia, advocate trainee at the Kenya School of Law. My final addition is this. In 2007, Kenya signed the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. We are yet to ratify, meaning we cannot apply the principles or the provisions of that convention nationally in Kenya. Also meaning we cannot criminalize enforced disappearances. So mine is just to implore the government to ratify this convention, to criminalize enforced disappearances, and bring the perpetrators of said enforced disappearances to book. Thank you.
So my name is Salma, and as I said, I work with Haki Africa, but also a counselor by profession. I just want to urge all of us to know how to take care and reintegrate families of enforced disappearances victims, because that is a major challenge that this family faces. At the coast of Kenya, most of these families are rejected by the community because of the fact that they are being suspected to be terror-related just because their person has been kidnapped. So what I would want to urge us as community, we need to stand together with this family, ensure that we offer them all the support that they need, not only psychosocial, economic, socially, and all these rights that people feel we are enjoying as free mwananchi, they should also enjoy because they are going through a lot. And we need to bring them closer to us so that we can help them also go through this journey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anne from Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network. My urge is I would like to urge you to take our cases seriously because some of us, my husband disappeared 4 years ago and we've never heard anything about him. My case was closed after 1 month. We were threatened not to pursue the case. So I don't know where we are going. I don't know what we are going to do, but my urge is take our cases seriously. We have kids to take care of. We have our families. So we need your support a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think allow me to also thank the agencies that have been here, and especially Witness Protection Agency. Really, thank you so very much. Anyone who needs that kind of support, we have an office that's able and willing to work with us. Let us use that opportunity. We still call upon all the different entities, IPOA, to expedite investigations. A lot of evidence has been produced and provided. We want to see more convictions. All the relevant offices, we really call upon you, as one of us said earlier, to ensure that you deliver on the mandate upon which taxpayers' money is used for. So please deliver. So thank you, everyone. And we stand united and in support and in solidarity with victims, survivors of enforced disappearances. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Wangeshi, IMLU, and the entire team. So I think just the last step to this today, I want to call upon William of IMLU to just come and do a vote of thanks. Then we'll take it back to the IMLU team to give us any administrative instructions. William, step up. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon everyone. Okay, kwanza kabisa ningependa kuwarudishieni shukrani ninyi nyote kwa kuweza kujitokeza kwa dhati yenu yote. Haikuwa siku rahisi, lakini mwishowe imeweza kufanya nini? Kutimia. Na haswa shukrani inatokana na kuitikia wito wa kujitokeza kwenye kikao hiki. Na kwanza kabisa ningependa kuanza na waandalizi wa kikao chenyewe, haswa kutoka IMLU na kikundi hiki ambacho tunakiita the Police Reforms Working Group. Na zaidi ya hayo, vile ningependa kurudisha shukrani kwa mashirika yote ya kiserikali na shirika ambazo pia zisizo za kiserikali. Asanteni sana kwa kujitolea muhanga ama kwa dhati yenu yote hiki ili kikao hiki kiweze kufaulu. Alafu mwisho kabisa ningependa kurudisha shukrani kwa waathiriwa ama survivors kwa kuwa na ujasiri wa kufika kwenye kikao hiki na hata kuweza kuzungumza nasi, kuongea walioyapitia ambayo sio rahisi. Alafu baada ya hapo ningependa kusema ya kwamba tukimalizia tutakuwa na chakula cha mchana kwenye ground floor ya hii naita building ama jengo hili. Alafu kabla tuteremke huko chini, tutapitia pale mlangoni mahali ambapo tuko na Sylvia na Tony, ambapo tutapata kitu ambacho tunaita kadi ya kupata maankuli kule kwenye ground floor. Alafu kitu kingine ambacho ningependa kusema tukielekea kwa kumalizia ni kwamba baada ya hapa sana sana waathiriwa, ningependa kuwauliza mbaki tuwe na mazungumzo kidogo kabla ya sisi kuteremka kule chini. Alafu baada ya hapo pia ningependa kusema ya kwamba kumalizia kwa kushukuru kila mtu, na baada ya kusema hayo yote ningemuuliza Felix Wambua aje atuongoze kwa maombi. Asanteni sana na Mungu awe nanyi.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felix Wambua. I wanted to make prayer in quotes before we pray. It's my humble plea to you Kenyans to protect the Constitution before it's too weak to protect you. Quotation from Bobby Wine. It's my prayer that what has happened here today will reach President Ruto, because some of the victims, not for only 1982, but for 2024, fresh, traumatized, in pain, will be on media today. I hope he's going to follow that. If not him, his team or his boys, whom I'm in pain and angry with them for having abducted Bob Njagi. After a few minutes, he left where we had a meeting. It's my prayer that the families that have gone through pain, God will create a new heart for them. It's sad that the Bible tells us to forgive them, but it's unbelievable to think of forgiving such animal-like people. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we are here today because you had planned this day as we commemorate the victims and survivors of forced disappearance. As we pray, we still have wounds in our hearts. We still have tears in our eyes. We still have heavy hearts when we think of our brothers and sisters whom we still don't know their whereabouts. God, we pray that you're going to protect them. God, we pray that you're going to give them divine protection. Thank you, Lord, died for our sins. Thank you, Lord. We are here. We don't know whose sins we are dying for, but give us strength, give us courage to fight on. Thank you, Lord, for this moment as we depart from here. Guide us and protect us. It is in the name of Jesus we do pray and believe. Amen.
William, where do you want to see the victims and survivors who are willing to offer counseling, who are willing to receive counseling? But this